Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Jaw's Coffee Chat Mental Health Awareness Show. Today, we want to start by thanking Lawrence Wingate of Wingate Studios, Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel, and Zach Clayton of the PAC Channel. Today, we are here with Shelley Portolato. Is that how you say it?
That's perfect. Nice work.
Amazed. Actually said it right. But you may recognize her from being with us in the last week. I think it was like 26 or something like that, but it was last Monday, with today being 12/4/2023. And last Monday, she joined us for the first time. We welcomed her back. As interesting as many of you may have found the discussion. Please be sure to share and subscribe to our page or wherever else you found this. Now, let's get to the show.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you to everybody that's broadcasting the show. I appreciate everybody that gets the message out there about mental health. And thank you for having me back on. I'd love to chat to you more about what we're doing today.
So we were talking last week about mental health and how that correlates with the work you do. So if you remember what we were talking about, there were certain key points. I think it had to do with I think you're in health or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a life coach. And the reason I am is because I went through that postpartum anxiety bit, which sucked, and I'm out of it. And then somehow we got onto the topic of going back to work and having that imposter syndrome come up.
Right. And we were talking about we left on the idea of that I said I had imposter syndrome according to somebody who used to work for me. And I wondered what your life coaching had to do with that. Like, what are some key points you hit? Because I'm finding out that as I speak more about that I have it, I'm finding more others speaking up that they have it too. And it actually is very interesting how many people don't even know there's such a thing.
Yeah, and it's never something that I've considered that I have, because the message doesn't resonate with me, but so many people talk about it, and really it's just this idea that you're somehow pretending to be good enough and that somebody will come along later and find you out. Is that how it feels for you?
Now, personally, I feel that I'm never good enough.
It's that not good enoughness.
I'm never good enough no matter what I do. But then where you get going with the whole idea behind that was that I was saying here I've been recognized as in March of 23, one of the top 30 most influential women in the world globally. But yet, personally to me, I feel that I'm not good enough. I'm never enough to have meaning in this world. And so that plays into with mental health, my depression, of believing that the world doesn't need me when I'm depressed. Like, those false negative thoughts that depression onsets. So they kind of correlate, they go hand in hand between the constant state, I'm not good enough, to then when I get depressed, that the world doesn't need me because I bring no value to the world.
Yeah.
And yet, if you look into reality from like the book that I got 2 publishers approving, and I actually just in a meeting before the show, I met another publisher, so I'm getting 3 in a matter of a month. I mean, so it's a goal I've been aiming for years, but it's kind of like no one even hears of publishers anymore that are actual like traditional publishers. They're so hidden You can't find them on the internet, so a lot of people don't even believe they exist anymore. And then they fall into this vinyl publishing and all these other things, right? But it's at a point that I knew this is what I wanted,
Mm.
but I didn't actually foresee that was going to happen because of the imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. Because if I was good enough, why haven't I not done it yet?
Yeah. And what happens is the more success you get, the bigger the disconnect is going to be. So it's going to feel even harder and harder to say, well, I'm doing it. It's okay for me to do it.
Well, I don't feel that it's not okay to do it. I personally struggle with believing that when I do it, I actually do bring value. I actually am successful. I actually have meaning to the world. But maybe that goes to what you're saying, that the more success you have, is the heavier the load from the imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And maybe that's to say that I've had so much success that mine has dug me pretty deep.
Yeah. It's this the way I was the way I like to describe it is that imposter syndrome starts with this idea that we're not allowed to believe in ourselves, or we're only allowed to believe in ourselves this much. And when we start getting more successful and we start needing to believe in ourselves this much, that's where things kind of start to cram up and get a little bit scary. And I want to unpack why that happens. Because the more we believe in ourselves, the more this feeling of pride bubbles up in our body. Except when pride, for whatever reason in your past, doesn't feel like a safe emotion to feel. If pride isn't a safe emotion, then the body wants to run away and hide from doing the big things in the world that will cause us to feel pride. What do you think, Jennifer?
We'll see. And personally, I'm thinking of while you're saying that, my PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
like how on the 14th,
Yeah.
I was hit by an Uber driver, me physically unfit as a pedestrian. So, with that happening and being the victim of another crime back in May, and then another crime back in September of last year, and basically it's been every 6 years of my every 6 months of my life, I've been a victim of some kind of crime. That's done damage of believing I'm worthy, because if I am worthy, why are they all coming after me as the same victim? That no matter what place I live, how high of an income, the area I live in, or whatever, that they're always getting me somehow.
Yeah. I think what we're talking about might be two different things. Your experience of that imposter syndrome is very different to what I've heard from other people. So this idea, and I want to
Well, I
kind of
mean, to me, it's
switch
like
gears a little.
if I have value, why am I constantly under attack? And I guess my point of where I integrate those is, since a lot of criminals don't think that I'm worthy of living, maybe I am no value. That worsens the imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Because how
Yeah,
many times do you hear, let's say, Warren Buffett or any other big up there person constantly being targeted and victim of multiple crimes for their entire life?
because your brain connects this idea that you're being targeted because there's no worth there.
So the thing is, because I'm constantly targeted, that convinces me there's no worth.
Yeah, and that feeling of being constantly targeted is very loud and in your face, and it's
It
very
is, and then
present.
it strikes really severe anxiety. And with the post-traumatic stress disorder, it puts on fight or flight. Okay, who's going to be my next attacker? Okay,
Yeah,
watch out. Okay, here's somebody coming. You better watch out before they attack you.
it doesn't feel safe to feel safe.
Right, because like one thing that adds to that is, here I've lived in this same upper middle class area different communities, but the same little suburb of Houston for 30 years, 31 years now. Anyways, so a long time being in the same place. And no matter what side of town I was in, the lower class, upper middle class, the even higher class, whatever, I always was somehow struck with victimization of some kind of crime. And then it finally hit home in the last week when this mall that I go to during the week, when I take a few hours off to go shopping before getting to my client or whatever's the next agenda of work, there was a shooting there. And it was
Uh-huh.
at the particular store in that mall that sells guns. And without getting into politics, how there is a hot topic related to guns and all these massive shootings.
Mm,
So wherever you stand on it, I'm saying that it's a hot topic in politics.
yeah.
And it finally hit home where I'm like, nowhere is safe.
And
It's before the idea that lower income areas were, dangerous because people were having a hard time getting by, so they were stealing and stuff to try to survive.
now it feels like
And the
everywhere.
idea was the upper middle class and other upper class areas had a great economy because they have people who are always able and can afford to constantly be spending, and whatever they need, they can buy it. And then now it's shifted. It's one of those that has through the pandemic that could be affecting more than just myself, right?
Mm,
That nowhere is safe anymore. Because even the areas that didn't have history in crime, at least not enough to hit CNN, are now getting those.
yeah, and the challenge here is that I'm up in Canada in a small ski resort town, and it feels
Mhm.
really safe. So it's easy for me and my body to let myself feel safe and to let myself feel like I have worth. I don't have these outside factors that are trying to poke holes in that belief that I have worth. When you're
Well,
in
and
an
see, some of
unsafe
these,
environment,
yeah.
it's harder for people to stand up and say, I am worthy, I have worth, when these things are happening around them.
Yeah, but did you see where I was saying how they all integrate
Mm,
between the PTSD, the crime going on in such massive numbers since the pandemic? It finally hitting home to be in my actual home, small town around Houston. And I mean, you see how those all intermingle together, right?
it does. And when we leave it all intermingled together, it keeps circling and swirling and tightening itself into this knot of there's no worth, I have no value, if I had worth, I would. So what we actually want to do is we want to pull it out and look at all the different pieces. How does that sit with you?
Well, okay, so one thing is my therapist, I personally work with her on this, and she had me do this homework to say, uh, what gives me value? What about me is valuable?
Mm-hmm.
And I had at a certain point said to her, well, I don't know. That's the problem. I was again worth anything. And I said, but on the other hand, as an employer, I could say what are certain questions and certain kinds of answers to say in an interview could tell me if that person is worthy of filling a certain role and the compensation that'd be offered.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, so what are those? And I said, from their character and personality to how it's fit with the degree, like the field or whatever
Yeah.
that it's in, and how that correlates with their professionalism and ethics to other things like independence, self-discipline, because I don't micromanage. I need people who can all work together.
Yeah.
Well, I only have one meeting per week to say, what's your report? Here's what I got for each of y'all to do and delegate out. And then the next week ask the report on those again and so forth. And anyway, so she said, so now let's try asking you those questions.
And what happened?
I started naming things as what I tell my clients all the time, which is my education level, how many years I have of experience in the field, and the social butterfly kind of person I am. All these other things, that's like what I tell a client, when you get that lead of someone wanting your service and you say that something, that this is
Mm,
what makes me great at my whatever kind of work or field.
yeah.
And then my therapist went on to say, and what about your role in your family and around your household? What value do you bring to them? And then I started talking about how I'm the muscle person because I'm the one that works out 4 to 5 times or sometimes 6 times a week.
Yeah.
So I'm the muscle one that does the heavy lifting for my parents who are getting to be seniors and weak, losing their strength. And so the way we as a team get stuff done is that stuff that requires physical strength I do. And then I name all these other reasons that they need me that I think the whole world would collapse if they lost me because of all these things they can't do, but are part of having your own place that need to be done that reflects the overall point. They need me to maintain this house that they bought for all of us to live together in. So then she takes that to um, what about in your social life?
Hmm.
And I told her about how one of my best friends uh, told me about this therapeutic where you draw a house. Okay. The roof is somebody you can call on anytime you are in need or need someone to talk to. They're always available, always willing to answer, always willing to be there. And then she talks about your two closest friends or other people that you're the closest to who support you regularly as being the two sides of the house. They're like a stick house.
Yeah.
And I told her how that Ruth was my best friend and how whether I've been depressed or she or my best friend was depressed or something, the other one always walks us through it and pulls us out of that, whether it's prayer
Yeah.
or it's saying, hey, well, what's bothering you? And they voice something. Okay, what else is on your mind? And they voice it. So we help each other kind of like talk it through and lash it without taking it personal that it's against us. And so then we go on to other values I bring to other friends and then the values they bring for me, like certain ones that are my workout buddies at the gym, that are my encouragement and motivation to do my workout because, oh, if I go to this workout class, I'll see this friend. And so that was how she walked me through to find my value, but in the different aspects of life. Because kind of like
Yeah.
I didn't know I had any other than when I was on the phone with a potential client and saying this is my skills.
Yeah.
And then she had to tell me, well, that's your professional value.
Yeah. It's like your brain wants to freeze up on seeing yourself as valuable because it feels, my guess is there's something in the subconscious that's like it's deeply unsafe to see myself as worthy. And then she's pulling that apart and being like, well, let's look at that. You've got worth in your home, you help your parents, you've got worth with your clients, you help your clients, you've got worth in different areas.
Right.
Yeah.
And she basically had me find that out for myself as she basically asked me, where the same questions I ask at an interview, she asked me, but about things outside of work.
Mm. And so we want to split that out a little bit more. We want to look at I have value. I'm a great person. I'm genuine. I'm empathetic. I help out my friends. I'm caring. And I create value in the world. I have professional value.
Yeah, and see, she was going into that, and then it only took like probably one consultation, one therapy session that I started coming back and saying, well, in such a situation, the value I thought I brought was whatever, but they didn't want to pay this whatever that I think is the equivalent of the value I bring.
Yeah. They were questioning the value you brought. They didn't want to pay.
Well, I thought they were questioning my value when it could be just some people are cheap and they don't want to pay somebody the full price.
Yeah, exactly. That's what our brain does. Our brain sees somebody else questioning our value, and then it does this massive jump to be like, oh, they're questioning me. They're questioning my own value versus they're questioning the value for money of my service.
Right. But you see where that kind of circled around to. So then after one session with her, I was able to raise the prices of the different products and services we offer at my company to then say, hey, look, I actually offered this much. It's worthy of this certain amount in monetary value. That's way more than what I've actually been charging.
Yeah.
And then in business, I mean, what else do we want besides paid over worth with multiple opportunities through expanding our team and other people helping perform what's being bought?
So what you're telling us is how you overcome or have how you're in the process of overcoming that I'm not good enough, I don't have value. You've had
Basically, right.
somebody
And that's
walk through seeing all the pieces. Yes, they have value. And then you've had
right.
somebody come in and question, and you've overcome that. Well, I do have value. My profession has value, and I'm raising my prices.
Right. But you see that goes into the whole theme of this podcast being not necessarily to point each other's weakness out, but to point out how we can overcome them.
Yeah, and you're overcoming it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is I think it's been really valuable for somebody to hear your story. And I was listening, thinking, this is what I've talked with my coach about. This is the exercise I did with her 6 weeks ago, finding those value statements of I value my persistence. I value my courage. I value my vulnerability. I value my genuine connection with people. Those are all the things that I value about me. So that when I go into a situation where somebody questions me, I've already decided I get to think this about myself.
And part of that with business, like you say, you decide what you think of yourself and how you value yourself. In business, we need to realize if somebody's not willing to pay what we believe we are worth as far as the value we bring, like for example, say the fact that my calendar is always full and people have to book 4 weeks in advance to get on my calendar.
Mm.
Well, that says I bring enough value that I could increase my rate because of how difficult it is and how in demand I am, right?
Yeah, you're at high demand. There's bookings coming in. You can
Yeah.
afford to turn away people that don't want to pay the next level of rates.
See, and before going through this whole therapeutic approach, I thought, well, because if I raise my price, then won't be in as much demand because majority of people are in um struggling different income levels instead of the ones that could afford these ramped up rates. So I was trying to serve the majority versus serving what I'm worthy of.
Yeah, you were trying to accept less because you wanted to give more to people, give more people access to your services.
Well, I was focusing on the clientele size instead of the monetary side of business.
Yeah, yeah. So
Because the
I
idea make it affordable so more people can afford it versus make it worth what I am and less will afford it, but so will I make more or the same on less.
it's a math equation then. If I raise my
Yeah. Well,
rates,
I'm in the
so many
accounting
people will say
field, so
yeah. Sorry, go on. You're in accounting, aren't you?
that's what my master's and bachelor's are in.
Yeah. So math, you're way ahead of me on all the math. Uh, and I want to ask, does it still feel like you have that level of imposter syndrome, or does it feel like you've moved through it?
I think you're right to say I'm in transition and in progress
Mm-hmm.
because since starting this process with my therapist in maybe the last 2 weeks, okay,
Oh,
maybe
so
three
we're
weeks.
like
I don't know. It
super,
was it
super
was
new on
mid or
this.
late
Yeah.
November when she and I
Okay.
started this. But I was telling you how the big announcement about me landing a publisher
Yeah.
and how excited I am because I just met with a publisher who wants to publish my book. And then it turned into, in our discussion, I met with two of them and I had to start with one and go his route to multiply um, charges based on the multiplied value that even he pointed out in a publisher's aspect of business. And then to say, well, with all this work and growing numbers he's generating, if I do his plan, right, that I can take on the other publisher in January or February. And then at the same time, I was telling you, so I got another one, a third one that I need to meet with and draw a start date with. So potentially I'm going to have a publisher for all 5 or 6 books
Yeah. So
before
it's
I even
like,
release another one.
you've got one success and you can your brain can handle, okay, I'm worthy of one success. And then you get
But
another success
that
and another one.
heightens my value of myself because something I was saying that's what we didn't even think existed anymore, which are traditional publishers, came to me.
Yeah. And
He texted me and he was inquiring if I'd like to have a consultation to see if we could be partners.
which is
And I
great.
mean, it's if I didn't even know they existed, how would I have targeted the whole marketing concept? How would I have targeted them if I didn't know
Yeah.
they existed?
It's fun when they come to you. And
But that
Jennifer,
boosted my attitude and my perception of myself. That then I felt boosted my resume, and then I had a better spill and a better attitude and a more acceptance with, hey, I'm higher value because I got this one, and now you are competing. And now there's a third one competing. So this is how high up that my value is starting to climb in just my perception and the
yeah,
imposter syndrome.
yeah. It's your
So
ability
see, the
to let
therapy
that value
affected my
in.
career. My career starts to prove wrong my imposter syndrome. What I
Yeah.
had to start was going to a counselor with dealing with my imposter syndrome to convince me to do these certain things that I really am valuable enough for, but my imposter syndrome said I was not. It's
Yeah.
not that I actually wasn't.
Yeah. So I'm going to slow it down for all the listeners here. You've worked on your thoughts and your feelings, your capacity to feel value. And that value has translated into doing all these actions, which is, it feels like the publishers have come to you, but you've done a bunch of stuff out there to bring them in. So you've created more evidence that you're valuable, and it feels safe. It feels good to be valuable. So you do more stuff and then you do more stuff. Now, when we get to publisher number 3, when we get to like the third accomplishment or even the second, we can see you're in transition because you're going up. You're bringing yourself up. You're bringing your value up, and it feels safe to go up. When you get to that, when other people get to that third one, it can feel too scary. It can put too much pressure on that budding muscle of like, I get to believe in myself. It's safe to see that I have value. And it can push them down again. So there's this kind of balancing act of like, we can see you're going up. But what happens if you get a fourth one? Will that keep you going up? So that at each level that you get another win, this is fun. You just keep catching yourself being like, does it still feel safe to keep believing myself at this higher level and this even higher level? And at some point it won't, and you'll have to go back and get a little more work done around like, okay, now I'm really successful. Now and it feels a little sticky. Oh, it's a bit hard to be this successful. So I need to work on my thoughts and my feelings and like create that subconscious deep safety again. So lots of people, they're stuck in like one. They can barely handle one success, just one, because it doesn't feel safe to have value, to see themselves as valuable, to have pride in who they are. Because at some point, pride became unsafe to feel, which is basically a bunch of people in our lives, maybe now, or our parents, or our almost like parents, have been telling us it's not safe to believe in yourself. They've been pushing us down. Not necessarily deliberately, they've been pushing us down. Pride is just a signal that we're going in the direction we want to be going. When we get pride in our body, it's a signal that we're going in the direction we want to go. But if pride, believing in ourselves, doesn't feel safe, we're going to back away. We're going to be like, oh, I can't do this. It's not safe to feel pride. I have to start telling myself that I'm not worthy. I have to push myself down. But you've got the evidence, the proof. People want to publish my stuff. I've got books lined up. I've got publishers lining up at my door. It's on paper, like literally on paper, it looks like it's all working. What's really working is you've created this little bit of safety to be like, yeah, I have value. High five the therapist, because he or she really helped out. She or they really helped out because they've helped you feel safe enough to be like, yeah, this is me. I'm doing the thing.
She's helped me enough that she says, in her own opinion, looking back 1 year, I am not the same person.
No, not at all. Because different feelings now feel safe in your body. What feels different now?
So interesting enough, I was saying about how I got hit by the car.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm losing my mobility.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't go out to do my workouts. I can't go to the gym. I can't do a lot of stuff. But what feels different is that when I'd always before from staying home for hours and hours, days and days, get depressed, that I'm flourishing as long as I'm doing interaction, even though they're only virtual, like you and me right now. Whether it's a podcast, it's a client, it's anything. But if it's interaction with a human, even though it's virtual, I'm flourishing the same way I would with socializing with people in person.
Yeah. Even though it's virtual, I'm still connecting with you. I'm still talking at you as a human, as if you have value as a human. It's lifting you up.
But see, before that didn't bring enough like
Didn't bring it.
boosting of my attitude, like say fighting depression to get a good mood, right?
Yeah,
Or
because this belief
motivating and stuff like
is
that. And that's why the pandemic was so difficult for so many people because that was common.
they could only
We
get that
got our
value
thrives.
by talking to people in person. You've built this skill of
Right.
being valuable yourself, so you can now get it through a Zoom screen.
So even though I'm losing a lot of my abilities, like losing my ability to walk, to exercise, physically weak, so I can't lift heavy stuff anymore, which means I can't even do my laundry since I live in the upstairs and the laundry's downstairs. So I'd be carrying a big bucket full up and down. So all these abilities I'm losing, but I'm flourishing in all this in the online presence and networking, podcasting, everything else I do that interacts with a human virtually, that I actually, whether it's my mental health or it's my career, I am more successful in this time of sickness and injury than I was as a healthy human who could go to the gym and do everything else I cannot do.
That's really profound.
And that's really what gets to me, is that I'm in a very hard season health-wise, but in career, I'm in a very healthy, successful, uplifting, and upward moving transition.
Yeah, and you're being really vulnerable and open and honest about it too, which we're not. So everyone listening is seeing that, like, your health going, being challenging isn't sending everything else in the same direction.
Nope. Which says how much of it is an attitude, or like positive thinking.
Yeah, and I want to
being
pause
optimistic.
there. I want to really pause here, because I see this a lot in my coaching role, is that so many people are just like, it's positive thinking, it's positive thinking. Like, it's all the stuff you can control. And if you can't control your thoughts, that's on you. Like, it's not just the conscious thoughts, it's the subconscious stuff that feels safe to believe, that feels safe to be in. Like, and that isn't stuff that we can easily control until we've worked with it. I use a hypnotherapist. She's amazing. Anybody that can help you understand what's happening at that deeper subconscious, subconscious, literally not easily accessible thoughts. You have to kind of like, it's like the bottom of your freezer. It's not easily accessible. You really have to get down there and pull a bunch of stuff out. And like, I'm not going to say I need to go in there with a torch and a partner, but that's the concept, right? So we don't.
I hate to cut us off, but we
have to cut ourselves.
Yeah,
I want to blame.
Yeah, we're out of time. Will you leave everybody a note of your name, phone number, and then if they're interested, how to respond?
Of course.
And then I'll see you next week.
I can't come next week. I've got family in town.
Okay, try 2 weeks or whenever that fits you.
We'll be back. To be continued.
And where can people reach you? Your name, email?
Yes, my name is Shelley Bortolotto, Shelley Bortolotto @gmail.com. Probably easiest is if you're on Jennifer's YouTube channel. I will go and comment on the video. You will see how to spell my name, and you can go and find my website from there.
And thank you, everybody. It's been quite an excitement. And as you can tell, we have more to dig into and talk about with Shelley, whether we continue on imposter syndrome and the overcoming, or we move on to the next thing. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So if you're interested, please be sure to like, subscribe, share. And then our announcements today. We have, if you want to help veterans and be on our veterans nonprofit podcast, please email monday@projectdiehard.org. That's monday@projectdiehard.org. And that's at 6:30 every Monday Central Time. Also, we are now accepting bids for public speaking gigs, and we'll accept the top paying offers for up to 4 gigs per month, virtually or in person in the Houston area. We welcome virtual speaking offers nationwide, but to be heard worldwide. We are accepting top offers from companies who want to get ads or sponsorship openings to pitch their products on our podcast in response to supporting our shows. Whether you want to speak, promote your products, or get copies of our book, email us at jawscoffeechat@gmail.com. JAWS coffeechat@gmail.com. And please be sure to put in the subject whether you want to sponsor and have space for an ad, or you want to offer a paid speaking gig to bid to the bid. If I was to choose the top one, or if you'd like to get the link to the book that right now one publisher is working with me on publishing, but you can purchase ahead, or later on you can send the same thing related to the publisher I'll be working with in January of 2024. Whereas right now, when I am speaking this is December 4th, 2023 still. And thank you all and have a wonderful week.